This car started life as a humble coupe with a truck engine and ended up becoming the drift icon of an entire generation. From abandoned Craigslist junk to clout-heavy builds, this is the story of the Nissan 240SX and why it's still popular today. At first glance, it didn't look like much. It wasn't a supercar. It wasn't even fast by 90s standards. Just another rear-wheel drive coupe built for economy and comfort. So how did this humble Nissan become the drift world's favorite weapon? Well, to understand that, we gotta rewind the clock to the late 1980s. Nissan was cooking up something for the American market. A car that balanced sportiness with practicality, performance with affordability. Enter the 240SX. It launched in 1989 as the US counterpart to the Silvia line in Japan. Rear-wheel drive, independent suspension, sharp looks, it had the bones of a sports car, but with one key difference: the engine. Instead of the high-revving turbocharged SR20 found in Japan, we got the KA24, a truck motor. Torquey, durable, but not exactly thrilling. And yet, this car would go on to define an entire generation of grassroots motorsports. But to really get why the 240SX became such a drift icon, we need to take a quick detour back to where it all started. But it's not in Japan. Not yet. First, we're going back to Europe in the early days of motorsport. Picture this. It's the 1930s. Ferrari driver Tazio Nuvolari developed the four-wheel drift technique. Just picture Tazio flying through winding courses in a pre-war Grand Prix car, tires screeching, rear end stepping out through every turn. He wasn't just fast, he was theatrical. And the flair, it stuck. Fast forward to the 1950s and 60s, and now we've got British racing legend Stirling Moss doing the same thing. He was famous for sliding through corners with total control, what we'd call drifting today. Back then, it wasn't for show, it was the fastest way around the corner on skinny tires and loose surfaces. But now, let's go to 1960s Japan. Kunimitsu Takahashi, a former motorcycle racer, starts applying that same high-speed cornering style to cars, sliding just enough to keep momentum but staying in control. It's aggressive, it's technical, and it's fast. Kunimitsu is known as the father of drifting. That's where a young street racer named Kichi Tsuchiya comes in. He watches Takahashi and thinks, what if this style didn't stay on the track? What if it hit the streets? Tsuchiya starts sliding his AE86, well, otherwise known as the Toyota Corolla here in the States. He's sliding his AE86 down the Toge, a set of tight mountain roads outside Tokyo. But he adds something new: style, precision, drama. He wasn't just trying to win, he was making it look good, earning him the name of Drift King. Then, in 1987, he dropped a VHS tape called Plus B. It was just him, his car, and those mountain passes. That tape didn't just go viral, it launched a movement. Suddenly, drifting wasn't just a technique, it was a lifestyle. And with the rise of drifting came the need for the perfect car. Something lightweight, rear-wheel drive, and easy to modify. Which brings us to the Nissan 240SX. Right as drifting was catching fire in Japan, Nissan dropped a car that felt tailor-made for the movement, even if they didn't know it yet. In 1989, the S13 Generation 240SX hit American dealerships. It replaced the outgoing S12, otherwise known as the 200SX, and marked a full design reset. Gone were the boxy 80s lines. In came a sleek, modern silhouette with a long hood, short rear deck, and pop-up headlights that stole hearts immediately. But it wasn't just a pretty face. The S13 was built on Nissan's brand new S platform, a lightweight, rear-wheel drive chassis with independent suspension front and rear. It wasn't overly powerful, but it was incredibly balanced. Nissan wanted a car that was sporty enough to have fun in, but still daily drivable, and they pretty much nailed it. In Japan, this car was called the Silvia, and it came with a variety of engines, but the most famous engine was called the SR20DET, a high-revving turbocharged four-cylinder that produced 201 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. It made the car a beast right out of the box. But in the US, things were a little different. Instead of the SR, we got an engine known as the KA24E, a 134 horsepower, 2.4-liter single overhead cam originally designed for trucks. It had torque, sure, but it was low revving and not exactly what enthusiasts were hoping for. By 1991, Nissan upgraded to the KA24DE, a dual overhead cam version with more power at 155 horses and smoother operation, but still no turbo. At the time, people complained, but here's the twist. That tough little truck motor turned out to be perfect for drifting. It could take a beating. It had loads of torque down low, and with a little work, it could make real horsepower. Keep in mind that the S13 wasn't a full-blown sports car, but it struck the perfect balance between performance, price, and potential. You could buy one, drive it to school or work, and still hit the track on the weekend. And with the growing aftermarket and easy engine swap options, the possibilities were endless. Drifters, tuners, racers, they all saw the same thing. This was the blank canvas they'd been waiting for. When the S13 240SX first landed in the States, it was kind of a sleeper hit. It wasn't a Mustang or a Supra, it wasn't flashy, but the people who drove it got it. It was light, it was rear-wheel drive, and it just felt right on a twisty road. And while it wasn't setting the drag strip on fire, it had potential, tons of it. By the mid-1990s, import tuning was booming. The Fast and Furious era was just around the corner, and young enthusiasts were looking for something affordable that could handle corners, take mods, and stand out from the crowd. The 240SX checked every box. Junkyards were full of them. Aftermarket support was growing, and then came the SR20 swaps. Suddenly, you could give this humble coupe real power, straight from Japan. Drift heads and tuners started calling it the perfect platform, the Japanese Mustang. Then, drifting finally came to the US, thanks to Japanese exports like Initial D and later D1GP exhibitions in the early 2000s. American fans didn't just watch, they started building their own drift machines, American style. You want to talk about LS swapping the world? The S13 was perfect for the ever-versatile LS engine. The 240SX was a virtual Mr. Potato Head of the car world. You could just mix and match and make what you want. Time and time again, the 240SX was the go-to. Cheap to buy, easy to slide, and backed by a growing online community that shared tips, builds, and street stories. Forums like Sylvia.net lit up with tech guides, swap walkthroughs, and sketchy toge tales from back roads across the country. The S13 became more than just a budget sports car. It was a rite of passage, a blank canvas, a symbol of the DIY spirit that made the early 2000s car scene so electric. Even when values dropped and people were pulling engines for swaps or building muscle cars for local drift days, the 240 stayed relevant because once you slid one around a corner, you got it. By 1995, the S13 had already made its mark, but Nissan was ready for the next chapter, so they gave the 240SX a makeover, and that's how we got the S14. Gone were the pop-ups, gone was the hatchback. In their place, a sleeker, wider, more refined coupe. The S14 was lower, longer, and looked more mature. Less boy racer, more sporty GT. Underneath, it still rode on the same S chassis platform, rear-wheel drive, independent suspension, balanced as ever. But Nissan tweaked the suspension geometry for better handling, added a little extra width for stability, and carried over the KA24DE engine from the later S13s. So while it wasn't drastically different on paper, the S14 felt more planted, more composed. It was more refined, but maybe a little less raw. Unfortunately, not everyone loved the new look. A lot of die-hard S13 fans felt like the S14 lost its edge. No pop-ups, no hatch, and the price went up too. Sales in the US actually dropped. Nissan was aiming for a more upscale market, but buyers were either going cheaper with Civics or going all out with Mustangs and Supras. But in Japan, totally different story. The Silvia carried on with turbocharged SR20 power, and the S14 became a weapon in the local drift and time attack scenes. It still had the bones and the boost to back it up. Once drifting really caught on in the States, people circled back to the S14. It might have been overlooked at first, but that wider track and longer wheelbase made it really stable at speed. And once you got it sideways, it stayed there. Just like the S13, it became a favorite for grassroots builds, pro-am competition, and full-blown Formula Drift teams. Guys like Chris Forsberg and Von Gittin Jr. started their early drift careers in cars like these. By the time the 240SX left the US market in 1998, it had never been a blockbuster, but it had built a loyal following. And over time, that following grew. People started realizing what they had. The S chassis, whether S13 or S14, was light, tunable, balanced, and endlessly fun. And as clean examples disappeared, values started going up. The S14 went from the other 240 to a prized piece of 90s JDM history. Alright, we've talked history and we've talked hype, but now it's time to talk about the debates that have been raging in garages, forums, and drift paddocks for decades. Which is better, the S13 or S14? Well, the S13 definitely has that classic 80s into 90s vibe, boxy lines, pop-up headlights, and a real tuner-friendly look. It's raw, it's iconic, it screams street car. The S14, on the other hand, is smoother, wider, and more mature. No pop-ups here, just sleek curves and a planted stance. It looks more like a sports coupe and less like a project car. Both are on the same basic S chassis, but there are key differences. The S13 is lighter and more nimble. It loves tight corners, feels super responsive, and has that chuck it and go energy. Great for street style drifting. The S14 is wider, longer, and more stable, especially at higher speeds. It feels more planted in fast transitions and on big sweepers. That extra wheelbase? It matters. Both came with the KA24DE here in the US, but the S13 also had the single overhead cam KA24E in early models. Stock for stock, they're really not that different. But when it comes to mods, the S13 gets the edge. There's more aftermarket support, more swap guides, and it's just been in the game longer. You want an SR swap? Do an LS build? The S13 scene has seen it all. The S13 is the street king. Missile builds, drift week warriors, sketchy toge runs, it's the people's drift car. Everyone's either owned one, crashed one, or wanted one. The S14 has always been a little more under the radar, but it's aged into that clean, grown-up build scene, pro-spec drift cars, VIP-style street builds, and resto mods with serious class. So what's the verdict? Honestly, it really depends on you. If you want raw, lightweight, and legendary, go S13. If you want sleek, stable, and a little more grown up, go S14. Either way, you're getting a slice of JDM history, a killer platform, and a lot of sideways fun. At the end of the day, the 240SX is more than just a car. It's a symbol of a generation, a platform that turned regular drivers into track rats, tuners, and drift legends. The 240SX didn't create drifting, but it showed up right when the world was ready for it. So whether you're a Team S13 or Team S14, there's no denying the impact this chassis had on car culture in the US. It was cheap, it was fun, it was yours to build however you want it. And yeah, these days, they're getting harder to find. Prices are climbing. Clean examples are rare, but the spirit, the energy, that's still alive and well. So now, I want to hear from you. Which one will you pick, S13 or S14? Drop it in the comments and tell us why. Bonus points if you own one or wrecked one or swapped something insane under the hood. Now, a lot of my Gearhead Lounge OGs probably never paid any attention to the 240SX, and hopefully we've said something that's piqued your interest. If you're considering researching the S13 or S14, you're about to fall down a very deep sideways sliding rabbit hole. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and stay tuned, because we've got not only classic muscle car content, but more JDM history, European cars, and even more new muscle cars coming your way. Thanks for watching. Take care.